and welcome to Talking Bottom. I'm Ange Pearson.
Paul Tanter.
And I'm Matt Brooks.
Today we're thrilled to be joined by a man whose career spans 4 decades, creating the weird and wonderful worlds in which film and television magic happens. He has worked alongside British TV legends including Roland Rat, Ali G, Victoria Wood, French and Saunders, David Tennant, Anton Deck, Harry Hill and Vic and Bob. He's seen pop stars' careers launched on Top of the Pops and worked with the Spice Girls, bringing Spiceworld the movie to fans around the globe. His vision has brought some of the best TV comedy of the 90s and noughties to life, most notably winning a Royal Television Society Award for Best Production Design on The League of Gentlemen. But our listeners will know him best for his work creating the dark and gross universe Richie and Eddie inhabited in Series 3 of Bottom. Grenville Horner, thanks for joining us. It's a pleasure to be talking Bottom with you today.
That's great. That's quite a nice intro. I didn't realise I'd done all that stuff.
I imagine it racks up over the years, indeed.
It does, doesn't it, actually? Yeah.
Very, very, very impressive. It's great to have you with us. You graduated the Royal College of Art. When was that? And had you always planned to go into set design?
No, not really. I sort of just trod that the art college route, foundation course. Then I did three years of a BA course in interior design, 3-dimensional design. And then a 3 years master's degree course at the Royal College in environmental design and architecture. So that's 7 years at art college. It's pretty good in those days, all on a grant as well.
And what then led you to the BBC? What was your initial role there, and when did you join?
My work at college, my architectural work was quite quirky. And my choice was Norman Foster, and it was the sort of modernist architectural movement. And I was sort of more sort of folksy and quite kitsch in my architecture. And they used to get really riled about it. And a friend of mine went to work for the BBC in the design department one summer, and he said, "Grenville, you'd love it." And so I just applied for a job there, and I got an interview, and I got a 6-month contract in the design department, which was huge. There were about 100 people working in it, and it did costume design, everything, makeup, the lot.
What was your first role there? Where did you sort of start as?
In room 400, all the design groups had a senior designer, and then about 6 designers and about 4 assistants. And in different rooms. And room 400 was quite notoriously sort of rebellious. So I was put in there and worked. I think the first thing I ever did was drew up a fence for Jack and Ori or something for a designer, And this is with my Master of Arts degree from the Royal College of Art. And you apprentice yourself into this fantastic world. You're a designer, but you've no experience of set design in television or anything. There were no production courses in production design, and no design courses in anything like that.
So you're really thrown in at the deep end then, just...
Yeah, and of course, there's 8 television studios, there's the film studios, there's location work. So you're working continually on a huge variety of things and learning incredibly quickly about the making of film and television. I just loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Fantastic. About what year was this then that you joined?
I started there in 1977. So
was there a particularly first kind of show or anything that really sticks with you that you worked on?
I think my first sort of proper, you were given what they called acting design. So you were still an assistant, but you were made up to designer for certain jobs. And I looked after Multicoloured Swap Shop and then actually redesigned the new set for Swap Shop. So that's my first sort of big thing, really. It's quite funny, I don't know if you're aware of it, but I also had a pop band at the time called The Cutouts.
Oh, no, I wasn't aware of that.
We didn't know that.
We actually played on Swap Shop, and I designed the set for us. We weren't a real band, it was just a mate of mine and me from art college, and we just played guitars and wrote a few songs, and we put a little band together, and the producer said, "Oh, you should come and be on Swap Shop."
That's who you know, isn't it? That's how you get these jobs.
Exactly. And so we were on Swap Shop and we were dreading it, but we did, you can see it's on YouTube. And on the Monday morning after, EMI were on the phone and everybody was trying to, because we hadn't got a contract or anything, and we signed to EMI on a 2-single deal, which was fantastic. We made nothing of it, but it's, because I was just into the design side, really.
Nice.
And we weren't that good, but it's worth watching. It's quite a laugh, actually. The single was called DIY.
Oh, so production themed music
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But you didn't get on Top of the Pops then?
No, we were managed by a guy called Alan, I can't remember, Rhyme Enterprises, Alan somebody. And he also managed the Tourists, which is Annie Lennox. So we used to rehearse in the same basement. And we actually got offered the first support tour with the tourists, and we were just so scared we couldn't do it. We only knew about 4 songs, and we just thought we were quite fake musicians.
Wow, fantastic. It sounds a bit like Voodoo Lady from The League of Gentlemen.
Oh, Voodoo Lady's fantastic.
So for Bottom Series 3, was it Bob Spears, the director, who brought you on board as a designer, or had you worked with him before?
It was Bob who brought me on board, and I think I have to check on the dates of this. I think I'd met Bob and gone on to French and Saunders with Bob Spears previous. I think that's the first thing I did with Bob. And that's the first time I met him. And Bob was, I really got on, Bob and I got on really well. He was quite cantankerous, and a lot of people didn't get on with him, but we got on really well and we enjoyed working together. So he actually carried me onto quite a few programs of his, which is nice. We enjoyed the relationship, actually.
Were you sort of his go-to guy then when he was coming to a new production?
Yeah, very much, very much. I think I did. I certainly did French and Saunders with him. Did the Bottom, the last show, Fry and Laurie, and in Spiceworld. And we're involved in other film projects that were ongoing after Spiceworld. Yeah, that never materialised.
Is it markedly different working with trained actors or comedians or pop stars? Is there anything different at all? Does that affect your side of the job?
I think there's a difference between, big drama productions and sitcoms or comedies. I think you can get away with much less in the world of comedy. I think
So with direct comedy stuff, particularly in Bottom, do the stars, writers, creators of the show have any say in the production designer comes on, or is that the director tells Rick and Aid, this is who you're working with?
It varies. I think Rick and Aid just let everybody get on with it. They wrote it, and then they trusted the people that were making it.
Yeah.
But I think with Fry and Laurie, I remember in the days of fax machines, I'd go to the rehearsal, the acting rehearsal rooms where the BBC had rehearsal rooms for the sort of run through of the Fry and Laurie where they'd discuss everything. And they were quite involved in the look and the design of it, Stephen and Hugh. And I had many faxes from Stephen Fry, because we used to fax each other at home and stuff about thoughts and ideas. But of course, faxes now they just disappeared. They're like ghost writing. You can't, But there's some very, very funny communications.
Been totally superseded now by email, hasn't it?
Absolutely. An email, and that assumption that somebody sends an email and it's got to be responded to immediately. That's rubbish, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
So it occurs to me actually that some of our listeners may not know exactly what a production designer is or does. Would you be able to give a brief overview of?
Very simply. You're responsible for the whole look of everything, the show, from the sets, from choosing locations, just to the props. Every single thing you see, apart from costume, is really down to the design and the art department.
Did you get involved with makeup, things like that? Is that kind of like, if it's like something with Tubbs and Edward, there's some maybe crossover with them?
Yeah, there'd be discussions if things were slightly crossing over, yeah.
So to take you back to when you're approaching Bottom Series 3, do you recall receiving the scripts for it when Bob Spears first brought you on board? Were you aware of the show? Was it something?
I was aware of it, very much aware of it. Yeah, I used to watch it, but... Yeah. The great thing about being at Television Centre was also every lunchtime you walk around the studios. So you'd see everything going on. You could watch stuff and you could go in and watch rehearsals. It's brilliant. Yeah. But I don't remember getting the scripts, no. But the main thing is that it was all studio done. Everything was done in the studio. Most sitcoms always had a bit of filming where you went out onto location. But with Rick and Aid and Bottom, I think it's unique. It never went out on location anywhere. Things like Dad's Army, they go out and all those. But this was all studio based, which was quite unusual because they were writing, we were writing exterior scenes and building sets for that to build. Yeah.
Was there a particular reason for that? Was that Rick and Aid wanting it to be that way, or was it your?
Do you know what? It's only recently I've thought about it, but that made it quite special. That it didn't go out.
Your job is to create that world, isn't it? So the sets that you were forming for Series 3, obviously in particular, did you get free reign to come up with things like, say, the Ferris wheel episode?
Pretty much, yeah.
Been a real challenge.
The Ferris wheel was quite amazing, and you're obviously aware of Bobby Warren's the prop buyer and set decorator. And he'd organised. I said, Bobby, we need to go and look at some big wheels, just get a feel for it, And he organised a trip to Blackpool and we had control of the big wheel, so we could sit on it and stop, and I could photograph and measure. And so it's based on that. We built a section of that in the studio, and it appears on the show that it's actually moving when it first starts. But that was just, we did that with just the camera moving. So it was a static build, apart from the carriage.
Yeah.
How much of the Ferris wheel was actually built then? Just a section, obviously.
Probably about 3 chairs worth.
Right.
An eighth, something like that. It was great having to work it all out.
It's a really impressive set. You can tell that you guys like researched it and put the time into it, because it's very it was good, and it was spending that time on a day on the big wheel at Blackpool and really working it out. And then of course the view, because it's supposed to be in Hammersmith, and so I had a photographer, a really good photographer, take a panoramic shot from the top of the East Tower. The East Tower used to be in television centre, just an office block. And we got access to the roof and shot that just in the evening, at night, just as the sun had gone down, quite dark. And then made that into looked at it on the model. And then we had it painted as a backdrop by a fantastic scenic artist, a guy called Steve Mitchell, who's done a lot of feature films. So it's a huge panorama of the skyline of London. It's brilliant. That's amazing.
Was that in the script then, that they, did Rick and Aid give you any kind of direction or brief on that, or was that all from your?
No, I think it was
imagination?
It was supposed to be in West London. That's it, really. Yeah.
Also in that episode, something that we talked about as a great example of production design was God's hand. That comes in at the last minute. What was that like to build? That, I mean, it's a great piece of work.
That was, I'd forgotten about that until I watched them again recently, a few months ago. And that was a film sculptor. We just carved it in polystyrene. Just give them a simple reference, and that's what they do all the time. It was good. I'd forgotten about the hand. Yeah. Yeah,
it was a wonderful piece of work.
Yeah, and the sort of effects on there, the sparks and all that were really good, weren't they? Actually, yeah.
The practical stuff.
And I think some of it must have been done in front of an audience, because traditionally that's the only episode that didn't have the house in it. I think, wasn't it, their house?
Yeah.
So normally the audience would come in, you'd do a pre-record in the afternoon, and then the audience would come in for the evening. Series
3, that's the only one. There's a camping episode, Bottoms Out as well. There's another one without the flat, but yeah, that's.
So normally the house, the audience would come to see stuff in the house. That's the classic set. Really,
it's a bold decision to start on Series 3, because it's the first episode of Series 3, being completely out of the flat.
Yeah, and I think there was an audience there on that stage.
Were you often there for the studio recordings?
Yeah, always. I'd always been there. Yeah, just make sure everything's good. You'd sit in the gallery with either the director or the lighting director. Yeah.
What's that like as an experience to see it happening from the back of from the gods, as it were?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's just, you're seeing the director giving all the instructions to the cameraman, the vision cutter cutting. It's a fantastic experience, actually.
So are you actually needed to be there, or are you just like, oh yeah, I need to be here?
No, you can watch it. It's part of your job to be there. You adjust things, you keep your eye on everything, make sure everything's all right, nothing's fallen off, or they've got everything they need. Yeah. No, you'd always be there. Yeah.
You came to Series 3. You weren't the production designer for Series 1 and 2. When you came to it, were there designs already existing from the previous?
I think the house, either the drawings for the house they lived in would have been kept, or the set might have been kept. I can't remember.
From our investigation, we think the set was lost or demolished, and it was rebuilt for Series 3.
Probably, yeah. They probably scrapped it, not knowing that there was going to be a Series 3, maybe, and then went with a Series 3. So the drawings would come out, and I'd, just reissue the drawings to the workshop, really. And I guess the big difference would be the paint finishes.
I think the pub set may have been the same, because it looked. I mean, if it wasn't the same, then it was a damn good job.
They were sets, weren't they? Really?
Yeah, I suppose pub sets would be more likely to be kept by the BBC, as they could be reused in other things, wouldn't they? I would assume.
Tended not to do that particularly.
No? Okay.
No. They'd have stock, windows and doors and things that you could assemble, but they wouldn't use another set.
in a different show. No.
And series 3 had some very impressive props as well. There are things that come to mind, such as Eddie's printing press when he's forging money. That's become quite well known, along with his fake banknotes as well, his triangular banknotes and things. Were they your design?
I think they probably were a combination between myself and Bobby Warren's. And I can't remember now. I remember that machine, obviously.
Yeah. But the thing that I think people mainly remember from series 3 as a prop is Richie's cattle prod from the Halloween episode.
Oh, yes.
Where they go trick-or-treating.
Yeah.
Was that something that you had a hand in the design of?
I think we'd have bought some in and we'd have had one modelled and made up, and then it would have gone to Peter Ragg at SFX, and they would, get it all working.
Yeah.
So it was specially made for the show then, using...
It probably would have been, yeah.
And you talked earlier about the street sets that were used. So as you said, often other sitcoms, if they had exterior scenes that were required, they would actually go out and do a location shoot, which often actually would have a different look. As there was that sort of Monty Python sketch about this whole house is surrounded by film, and you could often see a sort of slight difference, which I think gave Bottom a consistency. Shooting it in a studio, it meant everything was...
I think you're right, it did. And it brought that sort of slight surreal quality to it even more, didn't it? That was the thing.
Yeah. But we wonder, obviously, because there were such impressive street sets, such as when they go trick-or-treating, they visit Chief Mangasuta Buthelezi cul-de-sac, and they also do a ram raid through an off-licensed window in a car.
Yeah.
Do you know if there was had the BBC allowed more budget for the third series at all, that allowed for these things to happen?
I don't know. There didn't seem to be much restriction on the budget from my memory of it. Nobody was ever sort of...
What kind of budget you were working with?
I can't remember. It was a weird thing. You used to work in the BBC design department, and it was called man hours. So construction was costed in man hours. So you might get 1,000 man hours for the show.
Right. So it wasn't a budget broken down,
budget, no,
restricted. No. So you never had your vision kind of constricted by what budget you were working to.
No.
Okay.
Actually, we built some pretty big sets, didn't we? I just remember the Hotel Splendide. Yeah.
Marveluso Splendido Hotello. It does look fantastic. Was that based on any pre-existing things, or it's just
based on my love of kitsch hotels? Really.
Yeah, it's quite well observed, where it's like, oh, this looks nice, and then there's tacky elements in there as well and stuff.
Yeah.
And what if you like what tacky? I worked really hard on that. How dare you?
All tacky. I mean, fantastic. The bedrooms alone, just wonderful to be able to do work like that. You can't in a real world. You can't do that, can you? Why would you?
But the staircase that they come down and everything, it really does feel like you are in a budget, like kind of Fading Glory Hotel, kind of 3-star kind of thing in Blackpool, or anywhere like Western Supermare, like Richie and Eddie. They really do live in a dark universe, don't they? That, as you say, the set design really brings that to life. Did you? Is that one of your favorite kind of, was Bottom one of your favorite shows to work on in that way?
I think because I sort of inherited Bottom, I hadn't created it. For me, the fun was, building these streets where the car crashes in the window, and the off-license, the hotel, the big wheel, the Ferris wheel. I guess for me, the dull thing was just getting their house back together. I didn't. That was somebody else who designed that. I was just caretaking it and looking after it and getting it in there. But so the fun for me on all these shows were the other sets, really.
Bottom obviously went on to do live tours and a film as well, Guest House Paradiso. Was that something that you were ever potentially going to be involved with?
No, not specifically. No,
because you've done quite a few British films, haven't you? With Ed Bye and Bob Spears and other directors.
Yeah. All those sort of English, low budget comedies. Yeah.
Black Ball, Spiceworld, obviously, but Fat Slags was one that we saw on there.
Slags, yes.
Do you have a preference when it comes to the format that you're working in, film versus studio based, that sort of thing?
I think these days, unless you're on the massive Hollywood features, the range of stuff's pretty similar, actually. The things like Fat Slags, I mean, the opening in the street in Shit Street, just creating that in a street in Luton and dressing it. I just looked at that the other day and I thought, oh, how did we do it? Because now, of course, it'd be a lot of CG work and,
Yeah.
We physically did all these things.
a lot of the things that you guys did practically in Bottom that that you designed and Peter Ragg and Bob Warren's all worked on now due to budget and time and in some cases to health and safety and things, they would actually many of the things would be done with a computer in post.
No, absolutely. Totally.
Yeah. It's nice for an audience, isn't it, when they're there in the studio to see these things happening live. I think it gives it, it gives the reaction a bit more of a kick, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. We had, everybody had a lot of fun doing all these things. I think the fun's maybe slightly gone out of it now. It's much more of a serious business,
Oh, a shame to hear. Are there any instances you can remember of Rick and Aid or any of the other Bottom characters smashing up one of your elaborately built props that you're like, no, what have you done?
No, I didn't. I think, I've got no memory of that. I'm sure it happened, but
So the things that you designed purposely to smash, break away things, like what comes to mind with that is the joke in the young ones when that doesn't happen, when Rick gets hit with a chair when someone smashes up a chair that was made of bolster wood that was meant to fall apart, and then when Rick gets hit. So it's quite a meta joke. But yeah, it was from memory, the fridge. With a fridge falling on his head, is that a lighter fridge or is it just a pulley system?
Again, we'd have that carved in polystyrene.
Brilliant. It doesn't look like a polystyrene fridge. It's
Yeah, and plus with sound effects and everything, that's how you do it.
Is that the greatest compliment that someone can pay a production designer when they go, "Oh God, I had no idea it was fake. I really thought that was real."
Yes, sort of. A huge example of that is I did the first series of episodes, which is all set in LA, and we shot it all in Surrey.
Really?
Yes.
Saunders Studios, isn't it?
And there was a thing in the Guardian saying, it was just a jolly for the BBC to take a crew to LA.
Yeah.
We never went to LA. We went to LA in a recce.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. Yeah, I love that.
Was that shot? That was shot in Wimbledon Studios, wasn't it?
No, it was shot. We were shot out at Longcross.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
We were based there, and it's all shot around Surrey.
Well, it's convincing because you wouldn't know. Yeah.
It's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah. And I think eventually they moved to Wimbledon. I think eventually.
It is amazing what you can create, because you did Harry Hill the movie, and the intro is actually filmed all around where I live in Kingston.
I just love the idea of because it was written when the Harry Hill movie, it was all sort of set by the seaside, but then it didn't seem to make sense that they lived at the seaside to go to the seaside.
Yeah.
And I'd always wondered if we could do something with this Tudor world, and Harry just seemed to fit in that world really, and we coloured all the houses, and it was a great world.
It's amazing what you can do with because the camera, the colouring must have happened in post, right?
Yeah, except on Nan's house, which we did paint for real. Yeah.
All the shows you've done, and there's a lot, are there any that stand out as the most challenging or the most rewarding? I was rewatching some of the League of Gentlemen the other day, and I was thinking what a great job you did on Tubbs and Edwards Shop, for example. That must have been a lot of fun, but also working, for example, on that show must be challenging when the creators are so into their horror and that kind of thing. It must be rewarding, but also challenging in that regard.
Yeah, I think we all grew together, on that show, and I think it just got more and more and more and more, that's a really lovely journey actually to be on, to start at the very beginning, and just finding Royston Vasey, there's me, Steve, Jeremy, Mark, just driving around in a sort of, minibus around these sort of Lancashire towns and, trying to find a place. So it was a real build-up of everybody's ideas, really. But I had quite a free hand, strong ideas that they just really went with, especially the local shop.
You were on that trip to Glossop then, where they went looking for the
I was we just drove into Hadfield.
Yeah,
we drove in at the top and thought, oh my God, this is it. Look,
Yeah, I've been there. It's an excellent location.
It's fantastic, isn't it? And the statue at the top of the road and everything. Yeah. We looked at an awful lot of small towns.
Yeah,
but
the Peak District all around there is really, really beautiful.
It was just beautiful being up there. We used to rent an old sort of farmhouse just about 10 miles away, and spend 8 fantastic weeks there. And the League they'd come around for dinner and stuff. It's just good times. Yeah, good times.
Yeah. I'd like to ask you about another legend of television that you've worked with. What is Roland Rat like to work with?
He's pretty tricky, actually. Yeah.
Was that a fun thing to work on? Or
It was actually. It was David. What was his name? David, who's the puppeteer, who is Roland Rat, and his assistants. And they're really, really lovely. But we were building massive sets for this glove puppet. You know, it was fantastic. It was just bonkers, really. You know.
Yeah. In terms of the work of Rick and Aid, is there anything else that they've done? You know, it could be before Bottom or after Bottom that particularly impressed you, that you'd watch that both as a comedy fan but also as a production designer and enjoy it.
I'm sort of, you know, I sort of did watch. What was the one where Rick was played a minister, didn't he?
The New Statesman.
That I thought was pretty good, enjoyable. And Aid, not specifically. I can't really. He hasn't done much, has he? Outside of, he sort of went into the sort of chat side of things, didn't he? And
I think
he's done a fair bit. Certainly, in recent years, he's been quite prolific, hasn't he? He's done War and Peace, and
he did, didn't he? Yeah. And MasterChef.
Not so much comedy anymore, though. You're right. So a little bit of a step away.
Yeah.
Are there any instances of you and the crew, but Rick and Aid, going out for a big old piss up for a job well done?
There probably was, but I don't remember. I can't remember. They were pretty, kept themselves sort of, you know, pretty contained, actually.
They were very hardworking, we've heard. You know, they were in the zone of working. Do you have any particular memories of working with them on set then?
Not specifically. I just, you know, they just get on with it.
Really pushback from them for anything that you would bring them, like that this cat prod needs to have more wires, for example? Any time they weren't happy?
No. That would probably go through the assistant stage manager, who's, you know, responsible for the props on set and stuff like that. So once you get delivered the sets and you get them there, and, you know, they were always very happy, actually. You know, very complimentary.
So they were quite easygoing then?
Yeah, they were, actually.
Yeah,
was it a sort of sense of like the bus is almost driving itself? Is that an expression? Being series free, and they're like, yeah, we know what the sets are meant to be like now, even though you are redoing them.
There was never any sort of huge pressures from anybody. It was all quite chilled, actually, doing it.
Occasionally there was talk of a fourth series happening. Were you ever involved in any potential discussions for that?
No, I don't remember that. I don't remember any talk about a fourth series. But I mean, it wouldn't have particularly involved me anyway. It'd been, you know, directors and John Plowman, I guess, you know, and head of the channel, I guess.
And obviously, we're all big fans of Bottom. We're in the 30th year since it first aired now. I mean, is there any particular reason you think that the show's popularity endures in the way that it does for Bottom, particularly?
I didn't realise it did.
Really?
You're the people in the know about that.
Okay, because there is a huge fan base still, you know, online. I think maybe social media has helped it, you know, because fans can meet each other and talk about the show. But yeah, there's a huge affection for Bottom in particular.
I wonder why is that?
For us,
there's nothing else like it. I think it's just
it's the perfect marrying of almost cartoon-like violence with a sort of existential angst that I think a lot of people in their 20s and 30s recognize. Anyone who's, once you sort of leave home and you've got a crappy low-paid job and you're living on, you know, takeaways and beer, it's the nearest thing you can get to a live-action cartoon that sort of builds.
Isn't it, actually?
Yeah, and
it spoke to us as children, didn't it? You know, we were all.
And how did that compare with the young ones, though? Wasn't that a similar thing?
It is similar for sure, but I think when I was a kid, I liked Bottom because of this anarchic swearing and violence and stuff. And then my mum told me about the young ones. Oh, you probably like this as well. And as a kid, blew me away. But as I've gotten older, my affection for the young ones has, I guess, remained the same, but Bottom has increased more and more as I've understood it more. It's been able to emphasize more. I just think characters that are in the scum and in the dirt, the underdogs, are always the best. And that's them. There's so much they are. Yet, you know,
Richie and Eddie, hadn't they, by the time they got to Bottom? Whereas Rick and Vivian are a similar dynamic, but Richie and Eddie have got, I think, you know, as we've touched upon, the kind of heart to them as well, and the dark, you know, universe that they're in.
The young ones was before Bottom, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yes, it was. Yeah,
years
early
before.
80s.
Yeah.
The young ones was very much sort of the 80s, but I, as someone who grew up watching and loving Bottom, I kind of feel like, I might be biased, but I feel like Bottom has aged better than the young ones. That's not to say the young ones isn't fantastic, but when you look at the young ones, it feels very 80s. Whereas when you look at Bottom, it could be set now, even though the show's 30 years old. which is quite a compliment. So,
almost timeless, because it's quite cartoonish, and the sets, they could be anywhere in many ways,
I've still got the QPR T-shirt that was dressed on the set, actually. Which
Oh,
is
brilliant!
Oh, that's amazing. Is that your only souvenir, or did you manage to get anything else?
I think that's all I've got, yeah. And I'm a big QPR fan anyway, so it's great. I could go out and spend all this money in the shop,
That must have been a wonderful gift then when you were dressing Eddie's bedroom.
That was fantastic, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it actually signed by QPR players, or is it by you lot?
No.
Or the production staff? Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Have you kept any other memorable props from other shows you've worked on, like the League of Gentlemen, or any?
I've got like one of the original snowstorms that I made before they manufactured them. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've got, but it's all my sketches and drawings. I've got lovely things that one day I must do something with.
I think Angela, as a huge Anton Deck fan, might be hoping that you've got tucked away somewhere the alien from Alien Autopsy.
I was going to ask you about Alien Autopsy. It's incredible, the alien. Did you have a hand in creating that complete? Was that your vision?
That had already been made because it was a true story. So John Humphreys, who was the sculptor and part of the original trio who did the hoax, that
was the actual.
That's the actual one. So he remade it for the film.
Of all of that was one of the British films that you've done, and as we said, you've done quite a few, such as Spiceworld and Blackball and Fat Slags, Harry Hill. Of all the ones you've done, which one stands out for you as the one you're fondest of?
Spiceworld was great just because of that album was out and everybody's playing that. That was big time, I think Harry Hill in its look. I think the look of Harry Hill. I think all my films look good, but I think the Harry Hill was really complex.
Yeah.
Some of the stunts and the effects on it, all physical, really complicated things to do. But it looks fabulous,
Yeah, it certainly does. And of all the sitcoms you've done, of all the studio-based sitcoms, which one are you most proud of?
I think it'd have to be League of Gentlemen.
Yeah.
I mean, to create that world from nothing and to assemble this and to carry on with doing that, I thought it was just wonderful, actually.
Yeah.
Well, the live show as well, didn't you, at Drury Lane?
I did the live show, which toured, yeah.
Did that have a particularly different challenge, obviously being on stage as opposed to being...
and all the changes. I just think you took the themes of each world and tried to conjure that up very simply for the audience, really, and it worked quite well, actually.
So it started off as a stage show, was in a fringe theatre capacity and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is the stage show that they first toured with. I did the set. It was quite a big deal.
Yeah, it's like going back to the drawing board, but now with the TV show behind you, and it's a mishmash of both. I thought
it was really clever that they had the first half with them in their old school. Suits with just literally minimal hints of the characters, and then you went all out for the second half. Really, really amazing. And what's the proudest moment in your career as a whole? Can you pick one?
I don't think I've got one.
What about your award? You've won a couple of awards, haven't you? You've won the Royal Television Society Award.
Yeah, I've got a few BAFTA nominations. Got an Emmy.
That's all in a day's work. Then you're not particularly.
It's all in a day's work. Yeah. Really. It's amazing that I've been able to spend my life doing something I totally love, and I'm still learning, and I get paid for it. What more can you ask? It's fantastic.
It's a good attitude to have. It's much better than Ricky Gervais putting all his bloody awards behind him and humble bragging, ironically, non-ironically, every chance he bloody gets.
Grenville, is there anything on at the moment that you're particularly enjoying, but both as a perspective of just a viewer, but also you watch that and go, the production design on that is fantastic?
I don't watch a lot of television, actually, but during lockdown, I caught up on quite a few things, which is quite nice. Watched things like the Queen's Gambit, which I thought was fabulous, actually. I'd love to design the Queen's Gambit. I thought it was beautiful. Things like The Serpent. Caught up with The Crown. I'd never watched The Crown. I thought that was really good, actually.
And is there anything that you're working on at the moment that we can be looking forward to?
I've just got a script that I'm looking at, and it's do I want to meet on it on Monday? And I'm thinking, not really.
Can
you give us a coded message of what it could possibly be?
Yeah,
I'll tell you exactly what it is. It's an adaptation of Great Expectations yet again.
Okay. Is that a BBC thing?
It's BBC, but it's Ridley Scott's company and Tom Hardy.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, it'll be a success then. But
Of course, yeah.
but you're right. I mean, how many more versions of it do we need? Yeah. I
think it might be quite good. I'm looking forward to it.
Script's good. Yeah, it's very good.
It's
written by I can't remember his name, who wrote Peaky Blinders.
So have you got the luxury of only choosing what you absolutely really, jumps off the page to you now?
I've always done that. It's always been on, do I love this script?
That's why the quality of work's so good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Grenville.
Brilliant. Meet you all.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.